Okay, so hello, I am Dhruvi.
And I'm Akshi.
We are secretaries at Career Development Council ANC wing at IIT Kanpur, and today we are going to conduct the first podcast in our series, Interview Insights in the Software Domain.
So today we have here with us Sai Prani, who is currently working as a software engineer at UKG. So without any delay, we will proceed with the podcast.
Yes, beginning with the first stage of the interview process, what like the online test. What were the format and focus of the test that you had taken, like aptitude tests, coding based tests, or like puzzle based tests? Please elaborate on that.
like for different companies, the format is completely different. Like for example, if I talk about software, right, usually most companies will have like a online assessment where they have like three coding questions, and there'll be like a platform where you can code out the question in their format, their language of choosing, whatever. That's the usual format. Along with that, there's also like a online proctoring kind of thing where they obviously take your camera, microphone, all that stuff. That's usually how the online assessment goes for software. Of course, different companies have different formats. Some companies will have like a MCQ, especially like product manager roles. Other roles, for example, will have a purely MCQ kind of questions. Quant will have a puzzle section where they will ask you to write down working. Some companies also will have a pen and paper test where you have to literally write down your question answers and all that. But for software specifically, most like 99% will have a coding round. Apart from that, they will also have a short puzzle round as well, but that is not every company. Some companies will have it. Usually, the time limit will be 1.5 hour, 2 hours for 2 3 questions. That's usually all it is. Of course, some companies will stretch you. They'll say, okay, you need to do 4 questions in 1 hour, 4 questions in 2 hours. But that's again a company to company basis.
If I, talking about your experience, what was the uh, focus of the test that your company had taken, like UKG, like what were they mainly inclined on, system design or aptitude or coding, or like there were mixed rounds?
So you're talking about the OA or the interview?
If I'm talking about the OA,
See, the
like
thing about
first.
OA is there's no specific focus as such. Of course, some companies will have a specific focus on system design, but these are usually in the form of MCQs, which most companies don't do. Of course, if the company is heavily focused into like system databases, OOPS, and stuff like this, they will ask a couple of questions. But these are not something that is very tough. You just need a one run through the GFG or whatever, you'll be fine. But usually the most focus for most people will be the OA because these are something that are not seen before and will be little difficult. And yeah, coming to my company, it was mainly mostly just this thing OA round where there were, I think, 4 questions in 2 hours. I think that was it.
Okay, so the main focus was on data structures and like
Yeah, yeah,
DSA.
that is most of the software companies' main focus.
Okay, so moving on, I would ask, like, were there any GDs during your recruitment process?
Repeat that, I didn't get
Did
you.
you go through any GDs during the recruitment process, like group
No,
discussion?
also, the GDs group discussions are not for software rounds. For software engineer roles, they don't have GDs. This is something for consultant rounds, product manager roles. These are roles which usually have GD. Software engineer roles don't really have a GD round associated.
Okay, okay. Okay, moving on. What was the like? When did your recruitment test start? What was the entire timeline of your placement season?
Yeah, usually the placement tests start after the mid-sem of the seventh semester. So usually what people do, what we had done is prepare up till the mid-sems. After mid-sems, usually the OS starts, and these OS continue all the way through the rest of the months. Like after the first month, even during the NSEMs, they do happen. So that is one thing that many people don't really realize, that even during the NSEMs there are a couple of OS. Even during the interviews, like the interviews start on December 1st week, right? Even during then, some of the OAs are conducted. So yeah, there's no fixed time key. Okay, this is when the OA will happen. These are days. They're very flexible, very random. They can happen from anywhere, middle of the night, 2 o'clock to say after 7. But these are usually don't the main focus is they don't clash with classes. So they're usually held after 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. and they can go well beyond 3. There were a couple of OAs that we had given at like 4 in the morning, so that's something that you'll have to take care. And yeah, they also keep going till the enzymes and on, so that is something people need to focus on.
So considering the process is like difficult or I'd say random kind of, like if test can be scheduled at any time. So like how did early did you start preparing for the placement season? Like there are many different aspects of the preparation process, like right, like coding, system design, and also preparation for the HR interview. So how did you manage your time in that? Like what should be the ideal time to start the preparation?
Okay, so at least from my perspective and my friends who have gone through the same process, once the OAs start juggling your preparation for the placements, preparing for your semester as well as giving the test, there's really no time, and most people really don't get to work on their placement preparation. So best is try to complete your placement prep before the midterms, before the placement tests start. You will get, I think in advance you will get to know when they will start. People will start, there'll be rumors going on stuff, so keep in loop. But yeah, I think that if you have not started at all, I mean, some people would have already started preparation for their intern season. So if you have done that, I think most people would just need a brief refresher. They don't need to start all over again. So maybe 2 months or something like that before the placement tests start is a good ideal. If you haven't done any intern preparation and need to start from base, then probably the whole summer as well, right? So yeah, just one thing to remember is that when the placement tests start, there's really no time. There's no time to study for the placement tests and for the quizzes, whatever, and to keep in touch with the CADs. So that is one thing.
Yeah, so it is like ideal to start like
Yeah, much
before.
before in advance.
And like for the HR interviews and like, is it like juggling time between all these things all together or like
Yeah, so
how?
HR interviews is not something that is like, at least for me, was not something of a big deal. So what happens is before the first day of the interviews, which is December 1st, there's usually a 10-day gap from the end sem, the last day of the end sem. End sems usually, as far as I remember, for us it ended on November 20th, at least for me on that kind of dates. So there's usually a week or so gap between the first day of interviews and the last day of the end sem. So I mean, if most people, they actually keep their academic schedule for the 7 semester light. So if you do have time, that 1 week or more is more than sufficient for HR round, HR preparation, and yeah, I mean, there would be resources for HR prep and all that. So that's more than enough for the last 1 week or so.
Okay, so what resources did you use exactly for all the like coding, for preparing coding rounds and for HR interviews? And was there anything that you especially found helpful and you would like to recommend to other students?
I mean, see, for software, I mean, I would give the same advice as everybody. The main couple of resources that everybody should definitely look at are, lead code is one thing. Many people, I had followed lead code. Go through this websites for revision. There's neat code. There's lists online for the refresher problem sets that people need to go at. But if you're a basic starter, lead code is the best for me. There's also CSES, that is also a great starter. But yeah, lead code is one of the best, and there's more websites out there. People do code, they do these competitive programming. That's great if you're started from long before. But yeah, but in interviews and OS, they don't really expect you to have a CP base, especially not quants software in general. And they usually do tend to ask questions that are very, very theoretical, and lead code helps you to establish such a base. So lead code would be the best. For the other topics such as systems and database oops and these kind of stuff, and networks as well. These four things are something that people very, very don't even look at. They just think about doing it just before the interviews. That's not a good decision. It takes a while. So GFG and these kind of W3 schools, just a rough rundown of these would be enough, because most of the interviews, they will be software interviews. They will be around just for these, resume software, the systems, oops, database. So that is one thing that people also need to go through.
So like talking about lead code, like we know that there's a much of a debate, like how many problems you should solve on the lead code, like which is the ideal number. So what according to you is the ideal number, like for beginners or for people who are experienced a bit in the competitive program?
I mean, there's no such thing as an ideal number for problems to solve. Just keep solving problems. If you want to talk about ideal number of questions per subject, that is a better thing to talk about rather than number of questions as a whole. So per topic, I guess if you solve 10 or 5, depending. Suppose if I talk about trees, then you need to solve a large number of problems to get an idea. If you're a beginner, of course, if you're talking about something like linked lists, then solving 5 to 6 of the basic problems would give you an idea. Of course, if you're already done all this, then a refresher of the most important theoretical problems, like if I look at trees for example, there are different categories of problems, right? That would be one rundown. And then after that, just sticking with different types of problems that combine. After you're in the intermediate stage, you can look at problems that combine multiple topics, not sticking to one, like a tree with a DP and that kind of stuff.
Okay, so like the next round, which like the next thing which is in the interview process is the like in the recruitment process is the interviews, right? So like, did you practice for the interviews via mock interviews? Like, if you have, like, are they useful, or did you practice with your friends? What is the usual way that people take?
I mean, one thing about the interviews is nobody really practices, but yeah, one thing you can do is practice with friends, is what we had done. And practicing with friends, it's nothing like, okay, this is what you're gonna ask. It's just literally, okay, here's a problem. Can you solve it in front of my face in given amount of time? That's what people expect in interviews, and it's not about how you're able to solve it, how you're really able to verbalize the question. So this is what we had practiced with friends. HR rounds, you really can't practice it. You can just ask questions and just see how it matches. So yeah.
So during the interview process, were there any questions that caught you off guard, or like something like which you can't handle?
Of course, if it's software, like coming to the like the theoretical questions and the practical questions, I mean, there's no such question. But one place where you can really get fed up and caught up are HR interviews, and there was at least one or two round interviews where I did get caught up, and they throw questions at you like, so once what happened with me, personal experience was that they ask you, okay, what do you do to in your free time? And if you just say, okay, I read books, or I write something, or I read poetry, and then just ask you straight up, okay, why don't you give us an example? Why don't you read a piece of poetry that you have recently written? So if you are giving examples of these kind of sort, be prepared to face these kind of questions. It's very important, and these are something they judge you on. So that's very important. So if you're giving examples, especially in the HR round, don't be very vague. Be prepared for whatever kind of questions they ask you.
So, like, if we are sometimes like caught up in the loop when they are asking questions and we are unable to answer, like panic is the first thing that sets in. So, how should we try to cope up with this? So, like, we do not get caught up like in the entire interview process, that we do not get caught up in the nonsensical stuff, like, and not focus on the problems. If the interview just straight up tries to make you lose your confidence, how should we deal with that?
So firstly, when in a technical round, if the interviewer asks you a question, it's not about are you able to solve it or not. It's about are you able to talk to the interviewer, relay your thought process, relay the way you're looking at the problem, and then coming to a solution and then coding it, right? So if you're not able to get a solution, that's completely normal. You're not supposed to. And if you feel like you're stuck up and you're feeling like panic, don't let the interviewer get to know that. Don't use phrases like okay, and don't like make it known to him that you're confused. Instead, try to talk it out with him that, okay, I'm thinking of this is what is going on in my head, I would like to approach this. That way the interviewer will help you. And in fact, most of the time the interviewer will help you. The goal of an interview is not to understand, okay, can you solve a problem or not. It's about, okay, how are you able to talk it out and solve a problem and collaborate with them. That's most of the focus on.
Okay, so like we need to keep in mind that the interview is like a guide or mentor for us, not like more of a assessor for us,
Yeah,
and he'll help us.
the way
Okay.
was a test of how good you are at solving. The interview is more of a judge of how you can talk it out and solve it in real time.
Okay, so looking back, do you believe that there is anything that you would have wanted to do differently, or any regrets that you have?
See, coming to placements, it's nothing that you can regret because at the end of the day, it's a very luck-based thing. That is one thing everybody needs to know. It's not that, okay, I deserve this, so I must get this. It's just your luck on the day. Things can go differently. Things can go one way or another. It's just how what your luck is that day. That's the most part of things. Because most people, when they start going for the interviews, they will see a lot of things that will happen. People getting what they deserve, people getting what they not deserve. So, I mean, most people should not think about that and just think that, okay, there's some factor that I cannot really change. That way you can't really regret or do differently. Coming to the preparation, if I think about what I can do differently, maybe focus on systems oops and DBMS oops. These are something that many people, and same as me, had neglected until the last week before interviews. And I feel that, okay, you know what, if I had just looked at this a little before, it would have helped me in the OS as well as the interviews. That is one thing I feel I could have done differently.
Lastly, like any advice or anything specific that you had followed to keep yourself calm during this overwhelming process, like from the confusion and from the stress, like, how did you cope up with that in general?
I mean, the best way is to, a lot of things will go unprepared in the interviews. The interviews go from like what 12 a.m. in the night to 12 p.m. in the 8 a.m. in the morning, and then the second shift starts again at 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. It's a lot of time, so just get sleep whenever you can, and then be with your friends all the time because your friends are the only people at that moment who will really be able to understand you because they're also going through the same thing. They will be the only ones who will help you. So be with your friends at all times, and take the support and get sleep whenever you can. Those are two tips that I followed, and I mean, it helped me, I guess.
Like, thank you very much, Sai. Like we had a great time, and your insights were very helpful for the time you had made for us was like very beneficial, and I hope this will help like the further the people who are preparing in the future. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.